This video is a continuation of God's order for the household, focusing on the woman's head being a man. It's the part that links woman and man. God meant for every man head to be Christ. But just as men disobey, the women nowadays, they use that as an excuse to usurp authority over a man and to take on a role that was never meant for them. You see that a lot. You see it is very prevalent in the churches, in the homes. Now, if man disobeyed, how do you think you disobeying, using man's disobedience as an excuse for your disobedience, is going to make things better? Women, that does not make sense. God gave you a command. So even if man does wrong, you should uphold the command he gave you. And so begins the destruction of God's order. Starting with the relationship, marriage, then the household, and it results in the world we have today. Now I'm going to give you commandment and then two stories out the Bible to back up that command. 1 Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you to know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man. You have to pay attention to how that's being said. It's in general. See, a lot of women want to say, well, that's when I got a husband. That's when I got... No, that's not. Because the Bible is not talking about a husband or a wife at this moment. It's talking about man and woman in general. So it's saying, and the head of the woman is the man. And it's synonymous with the other two commands that's in this scripture. But I will have you to know that the head of every man is Christ. So you know the head of every man is Christ. And the head of Christ is God. In certain ethnic groups like my own, that mentality of not needing a man, how you not need the very thing you were made for? That does not make sense. God made woman to be helpmeet. And it tells you that in Genesis 2:18, and the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him an helpmeet for him. I will make him an helpmeet for him. So God made woman to be helpmeet for a man. You don't have women getting in the Bible and studying the Bible for the right reasons. They should be studying to know what their role in God's plan is for the home or the household. Not trying to usurp authority to become what God never meant for them to become. And that's one of the biggest problems with this. And if they just sat down with the Bible and really had that mind frame, you got to think about when you're studying, the type of mind frame you have at the time you're studying plays an important part of what you get out of what you're studying. Because if you go into studying saying, well, I want to be the head, then you will pick out a lot of things in the Bible that makes you the head. But if you go into there going, well, hey, I'm not going to say where I want to be. I'm going to let God tell me where I'm supposed to be. And then you read the Bible with that mind frame, then you will get a whole different understanding on the woman's position. But nowadays, the world and other women, like women are taking too much advice from women who are, for one, not in God, and they don't want the same thing you want. Why would you take advice from a woman who feel like she don't need a man, or she shouldn't be ruled by a man, that they should be equal? You shouldn't even be taking as a woman trying to be married. You shouldn't even be taking advice from a woman like that. And you see a lot of that going on nowadays. And that's why things are going the way they're going. You got to get in the Bible and study the women in the Bible. Women who want to be godly women. That's why God tells you to renew your mind. That's why you have to be born again. You have to renew your mind. You have to re-educate your mind to understand things the way God meant for us to understand. We got to come away from the world. Women must understand this. Your head is supposed to be your man. But in choosing your man, you must know who his head is supposed to be. See, that's the problem. You have women choosing men, because women nowadays make the choice. They choose men who do not show them that God or Christ is their head. Well, those were the commands. Now I want to give you 2 examples of those commands being done. Okay, I decided to pick 2 women as examples that were not married beforehand, but their obedience carried over and was the catalyst to them being picked for marriage. It was Rebecca and Ruth. These are 2 women that women need to study, because women have this notion that the idea of following a male being your head or a man being your head is something only in marriage. But what I'm trying to explain to them is that's a commandment that is carried over into marriage. And it's because the husband is the male and the wife is the woman. That commandment just carries over. But that's one of the problems that a lot of women have obeying. And it's mainly because they didn't find it at home. Women do see how or what role a man play, but they want to say, since you have bad examples, that no woman should. That does not make sense. How it should be is you should see the bad examples as a reason for making sure you do it correctly, because those bad examples of women listen to men and ain't right is because those women did not choose men who their heads was Christ. And he created woman for man. The main problem is women don't love the position that God gave them. They think they can do better than what God did. That should take men's mind back to the Garden of Eden. When God gave us a command and we didn't follow it, we followed the woman God gave us. What I don't understand is, how do you think you're going to get something different when you're not doing what you're instructed to do? It's like if you got instructions to put something together and you don't follow those instructions, and then you surprised that what you put together is not correct. Okay, now we're going to start off with Rebecca. The story about Rebecca, how Rebecca came to be, is Abraham was old. He had got up in age and he wanted a wife for his son, but he didn't want his son to take a wife from the Canaanite women that was around. He asked his eldest servant to go find a wife for his son from among his kinsmen. We just gonna fast forward through for the sake of time. So he made him promise, and he told him if she don't come with him, then he's absolved of the promise. So he took 10 camels with him and he went. When he got there, before he went into the city, he had asked God that to show favor on him, and whatever woman that would allow him to drink, that would be the woman that would go back with him. So he that wasn't even his God. He was just a servant of Abraham, which was a man of God. And he asked Abraham's God. People need to pay attention to that. But when he got in there, with Rebecca, she came to fill her trough with water. And he went up to her and he asked her, could he have a drink? She let her bucket down to let him have a drink. And not only did she let him have a drink, but she ran to go get his camel's drink. Now, people, you got to understand what a camel is. You got to look this up. Camels are the things with the humps on their back that drink a lot of water. And you got to think at that time, they put the water down into a well with a bucket, brought it, and then brought it back up with a trough of water. and she a female, so you know it probably wasn't a huge probably water, but she watered 10 camels. You have to look up and see how much water 10 camels drink. Just think of the type of heart that that woman had to have to do that. This was a stranger. She didn't know him, but she did it. And this was the woman that God chose. That's why I be telling women, you have to have this type of mind frame of these type of women. But nowadays women don't have that. And it's because they aren't taught in home. They aren't taught in the home. They don't see the examples. And then even if they're not taught at home and they're not seeing the examples when they grow up, they're not seeking to have or to correct what they saw was wrong with their household. They just fall into the same old pattern that they saw. That does not make sense. All right, let's go to the next story. This was Ruth. Now, Ruth, the story about Ruth was was married to a woman's son. She had 2 sons and a husband. Her husband died, then her 2 sons died, and the 2 sons was left with their wives. So she decided to pack them and go back home because she really didn't have anything left. She told the 2 ladies to go on back to their households so they can, because they was young and they could, remarry. And because she said she wasn't having any more sons because she was too old. But one of them decided to go on back. The other one, Ruth, stayed with her because Ruth saw something in her that she loved. And it's like, you don't see that anymore. Nowadays, these women, instead of like clinging to a godly woman and learning from that godly woman, they cling to these so-called women in the street that's posing and faking. But if you read the Bible, you would know these women weren't right for you to follow. You would know a true woman of God and how to follow her because she would be obedient. A lot of these women nowadays, they are not obedient. This is the focal point. You got to know God's order. And the order is God, Jesus, man, woman. But women are learning that their head should be men and then their men. Okay? Because your father's a man, and when you in his household, that's the person that you under. And then when he hands you over to a man who is your head. And that's how it's supposed to be. Is women love to say my husband, but no, your daddy is not your husband. But he's a male. That is the thing that connects both of the father of the girl and the husband of the woman. Is the man that's their head. Okay, and then fast forward, Ruth listened to everything that her mother-in-law told her. She didn't do like the other women did to get what they needed to take care of themselves. She had a standard about herself. She had a godly standard that her mother-in-law taught her. And these are women who weren't married at first, but in listening and obeying, it led them to be married. A great woman. And you saw what made her a great woman is a pattern of being obedient. That's that story that I encourage women to really read that story and pay attention to that story, because that story shows women where their heart should be. This is why it's very important for women to know their roles, to be taught their roles. It's not being done anymore. And we seeing the consequences of not doing it, or taking God out of everything, or taking our heads, or the order that God put things in, which is God, Christ, man, woman. So women, your goal should be to find you a man who puts Christ as his head. And then you put that man as your head. The problem today is a lot of women go out there, they're not right, and they get men that are not right. But these are the 2 examples I want people to really think about.